Alright guys, welcome to Full Spectrum Warriors. In this show we head over to Star Citizen's official forums and see what everybody's latest feedback has been. In this show I will be expressing opinions. Feel free to agree, disagree and strongly disagree in the comments below. Also bear in mind I do not have the answers to 90% of the things we are about to talk about. Just making conversation. Engineering. Thank you, Thorsten and teams. The hype and disdain over engineering is going to reach a fever pitch real soon. So before it gets out of hand, I want to thank the team that's been working on this for years. There is a lot of speculation about how this addition to the game will play out when it comes to the PU. I am in the camp that is excited for this feature. Some people may not realise it yet, but this change will make your ship, no matter what size, feel like a real spaceship. As of this moment, these ships have been our home, our weapon, our enemy and our best friend. Engineering will give us a deeper understanding and a realistic expectation of these meticulously designed ships, bringing us closer to the ones we love or pushing us further away from the ones we thought were meant for us. Solo or crewed, this change brings us deeper into the workings of these ships, adding complexity, yes, but also adding depth. Citizens have been saying for some time that Star Citizen has little depth. It's just a beautiful screenshot simulator with nothing going on. Now we see the depth that this feature brings, and some are scared. Rightfully so in some cases, but that feeling is misplaced. I believe it's the fear of not knowing. In closing, I see this as a major stepping stone to a deeper, richer and more exciting universe. That was rather poetic and pretty well put together. As always, it's the PvE only servers people who have a problem with what CIG... yeah, we're not going down that road today. That's sheer speculation. And yeah, the comments just descend into PvE versus PvP for some reason. I struggled to find a negative comment. This post seems to have drawn mostly like-minded people to it, which is nice to see. I'm not a fan of the engineering gameplay. I fear even more micromanagement. Even more preparation, aging, wear and tear, etc. Even more preparation before I can actually do the game, before I can play. I don't want to simulate some utopian real life. And this is one of the more valid concerns that I've seen being raised in my own comment section mostly, and to quite a significant degree. A lot of people are quite concerned about engineering coming in. Like, going by my comments, 50%. Possibly even more. I know that's no strict metric, but I was surprised by the backlash. And it's mostly this argument I'm seeing. I just want to get in a ship, I just want to fly, I just want the ship to do what I need it to do so that I can get from A to B. And I suppose the best counter argument to that is that shouldn't really change. Like the degradation and things like that, it will be slow enough that you will be able to just fly a ship normally, under most circumstances. Like in its default state, you should be fine. The issue will start to arise if you start overclocking your components into the red, making them too hot, or pulling out coolers and things like that. Other than that, you will be able to go around doing your daily driving, doing the majority of missions, and just repair as you normally do in the game right now. That all changes when you get into combat, and there seems to be this fear that it's going to make things less efficient and worse in a lot of ways. That if you're flying a big solo ship and you come up against a big crewed ship, that's going to be somehow a problem for you. That was always a problem for you. Nothing's really changed there. You were always getting your ass handed at that point. All that's effectively happened is you now have the opportunity to bring yourself back from that state, or you just do what you would normally do and, self-delete back to the hospital, claim your ship again. But there are things you would need to consider if you were interested in keeping your ship alive and repairing it after a fight. That's when more preparation kicks in. That's when you need to have boxes of supplies and things like that, possibly spare components, but that's still a choice at this point. And the aging, wear and tear thing, every time you land you repair, like you do now anyway, probably. So for that argument alone, the even more micromanagement argument, I would say you still have a choice. Let me know if you think I'm missing something though. Torpedoes, expensive or unreliable? Not both. It seems to be a commonly accepted idea that torpedoes are expensive in real life, therefore torpedoes should be expensive in game. I've also come across the idea that the game is being designed to allow for extended fleet battles, and torpedoes could threaten this balance if they are too decisive. I feel like we are getting the worst of both worlds right now. I'm not terribly concerned with how torpedoes are balanced. I could even deal with them being borderline useless, if they were extremely cheap. My issue is with making torpedoes prohibitively expensive and unreliable. It deprives them of any reason to exist. If we are paying millions of credits to launch torpedoes instead of buying a bigger ship or better components, then there needs to be an equivalent advantage that comes from torpedoes, or no one will do it. Military ships aren't supposed to make money. Sure, but money is a limited resource and military organisations won't be inclined to waste it on torpedoes if it's better spent elsewhere. Personally, I think realism is overrated in game design. I would like to be able to participate in multiple battles and even lose battles using torpedoes without completely bankrupting myself. This guy's kind of got a point. Torpedoes feel like they're in quite a bad place, and it does seem pointless to introduce them into a game and then make them so expensive and so ineffective. If you're in a small ship, they're easy enough to flare off. If you're in a large ship with PDCs, the torpedoes can never get close to you. And you could make arguments like, I wouldn't mind them being very prohibitively expensive as long as 1 in every 4 torpedoes actually hit the target. But as it stands, you need to be launching 4 torpedoes simultaneously to even have a chance of hitting an Idris. And to be honest, I'm half okay with that. Now, hear me out on this one. I know that's controversial, but the amount of damage these things do, they need to be employed very, very carefully. We can't just have eclipses and things like that running around absolutely clocking capital ships. There has to be severely effective countermeasures to that. Now, if you want to get 4 eclipses and a crew of 4 people to all fire torpedoes at the same time, then that sounds fairer, right? And that's the case. In my head, the intended gameplay is swarm the capital ship with fast light fighters, taking out the PDCs until you can take out enough that you can get those massive hits in with the torps. But there are other things to consider there as well, like the launch speed of the Polaris. You fire one, then a big gap, and then you fire another one. That's completely useless. And if torpedo gameplay was based around firing as many as you need to overwhelm PDCs, you should be able to fire 4 at once. Perhaps it will get revisited at some point, given that it is a torpedo boat. I would think that would be a positive change for the Polaris. But yeah, make them expensive as hell and don't give them back when they clean the ship. And again, I know it's a pain in the ass. I know you're probably just trying to fly your Polaris and do some stuff with your friends. I get that, but there would need to be an active choice. I'm going out in the Polaris. Do I need these massive torpedoes for what I'm about to do? And you have to admit the mindset is, you would take them anyway, right, just in case. And then when you come across some ship that's on the ground and you're not sure if it's a respawn point, say it's attack or something, it's getting nuked. And it's getting nuked because there's 0 cost involved. You know you're reclaiming that Polaris. Nobody repairs a Polaris. Nobody pays for torpedoes, ever. There's 0 consequence linked to the action. I wouldn't like it as much as you guys wouldn't like it, but we can't really have 2-man crews going around in a Polaris nuking things with 0 consequence. But yeah, having the Polaris fire 4 torpedoes at once is a must in my opinion, and I feel like that would solve most of this problem on them being expensive and unreliable. But again, could be talking shit, you know how it is. Engineering looks great, shaping up to be pretty great, I think, from what I've heard. Power and cooling management now has more depth, life support is both atmosphere and temperature, fuses reduce efficiency rather than totally losing power, fire and fire. I think they've put a lot of thought into it. The relationship between power and cooling is where it all starts. I feel like it's going to be a game of moving coolant around to allow you to run components at max power. That's a good start, I think. And this person goes on to say, you know, it's all been very well thought out, and he's up for it. In the comments though, big ship solo players are scared. Hee good. I feel like better co-op gameplay is worth having more limited solo gameplay. This is the point I want to get to right here. You have to be very careful about separation of duties being done just to split a job, and not for any good gameplay reason. And again, this is another very good argument I've seen against engineering gameplay. If there was a nuance to the task, if the task was a game in itself, if to repair a power plant it was an engaging minigame of something or some sort, that would make all the difference. But one of the more feasible arguments I've seen is, who the hell wants to run around pointing a laser at things and just standing there for possibly, you know, a reasonably long length of time? It is true that it brings a diversity of tasks. You are running around, you're changing fuses, you're putting out fires, you're dealing with, you know, life support issues, you're venting areas, repressurizing them. And to me, the complexity of that task overall is a minigame, and likely enough of a minigame to justify being in the game. But when you have 3 engineers running around, those duties are likely to be separated, and nobody's going to want to do pointing at components for, you know, a couple of minutes at a time with a laser beam. But we'll see how it goes, because it might not play out like that. It might be you control an area of the ship, you're changing the fuses in there, you're dealing with fires, you're fixing the components if that's in your area. And that would be kind of cool. I would be up for that. So hopefully they race through this testing and get more people involved, so that the feedback can become, you know, more constructive, more focused. Because right now it's just a lot of people speculating, especially me, obviously. It's not a magical heal engineering. Now, this is in relation to the repair button that's a one-time use for when a component gets completely broken in your ship. Now, for some reason I read it like this was possibly going to be on all ships, but a lot of people are saying it's just going to be on the light fighters. I don't think that's been clarified yet, but like this guy's saying here, 0 fucks given about the magical 20% heal. Major fucks given about it not applying equally to all ships. All or none. I don't care if it's a thing or not, but it should apply to all ships. Exactly. I am in this guy's camp. It shouldn't just be the light fighters that get it. It doesn't make sense if it's just the light fighters that get it. If you can fit it into a vessel that's so compact it lacks an interior, then you can sure as hell fit that feature into anything larger. I get it, maybe it's a gameplay thing, but if it is, then it's a dumb one. I mean, maybe we're missing something. Maybe there is some gameplay aspect that we aren't considering here. But if I have to get out of my seat and go and fix something in the back, in the engineering bay, then that pilot should have to get out of his seat and EVA and fix his components as well. Let me know your ideas. What could be the reason for it to be small fighters only, other than they just don't want it to be in the game at all, but felt they needed a quick fix? Anyway, this guy's post. A lot of modern systems have safety shut-offs, vehicles, computers, power stations, etc. Think of the magic heal button instead as an override of the safety shut-off. I see what you mean. Right, so like, if a component's in danger of going into a critical state, it'll shut down to preserve itself, so it doesn't go on fire or whatever. That makes sense. And then you push the magic heal button, and it just allows you to use up that last 10%, 20%, whatever. Yeah, that's a nice idea, I like that. It would also be cool if going past that point into that emergency 20% health pool would be the point where you could expect things to start catching fire, instead of it just being like, you know, random. A few bullets come through the hull, penetrate a system, it catches fire, but it was still at 85%. I don't know if that's the case, that's maybe not a thing. Maybe it does already need to be that low before it will catch fire. Yeah, I like it. It feels more realistic than a magic heal button, to be honest. What I would really like to see is a freaking fire suppression system in all my components' cabins. 1 or 2 discharges. The component goes into emergency shutdown, you press the magic button, it unlocks the last 20%, a fire kicks out, you press the fire suppression system, if it happens again, but you need to manually go and deal with that fire. Just like in any modern fighter or helicopter or anything. I think that would help please a lot of the people who aren't really interested in engineering as well. Adds a bit of redundancy to things, and it would be cool. It would be really cool to see, really cool to work with. It can be refilled from planetary atmospheres with CO2 or something like that, or you know, just by landing and repairing as usual. Let's not make things any more complicated than they already are for now though, because we are not sure this is even all going to work. Nice. Engineering now gives us even more reasons not to fly multi-crew ships. Multi-crew ships are already ridiculously weak, If you watch the DPS per crewman numbers and the efficiency per crewman numbers, just look at the Hammerhead. Now it's even more stupid to use such ships, because even more players are needed to man them. The result is that even more players will be killed by far fewer players because multi-crew ships are simply vastly underpowered compared to solo player ships. Unless CIG buffs multi-crew ships enormously, no one will fly or buy them anymore except for a few role-playing freaks who will talk up even the most useless ship. Bro isn't a role-playing freak. Dude's never lived. That comment aside though, he does have a point about multi-crew ships. A large, fully manned multi-crew ship should at the very least have a chance against a group of fighters. They should have a massive projectile speed buff, a massive range buff. If you want to kill a multi-crew ship, you should have to be inside its effective range bubble to do so. But are they right about it giving us more reasons not to fly multi-crew ships? I'm not entirely sure that's the case. If you're on a multi-crew ship, that means that ship can be constantly repaired, which gives it far more survivability in a fight against fighters. If it could hit them, that is. In fact, the one major thing I don't really like about the whole engineering thing is the fact that you can detonate the ship by blowing up the power plant. That would be fine if there was an effective countermeasure, especially for size 3. Not being able to replace that is a massive issue now. I like the idea of the ship being able to be blown up completely, but there needs to be a way to counteract that. Even if they just make it so that if you power down the power plant, its damage can't go below a certain level. It can't get into a critical state, if that makes sense. Something like that needs to be introduced. But once again, let's talk about it. Talk about it in the comments. Common sense disconnect in engineering and other mechanics. The level of disconnect from common sense in engineering mechanics / gameplay is worrying. I get it's a game, but it doesn't have to be gamified, dumbed down to the point it breaks believability and common sense. Okay, I'm just going to summarise this guy's ideas. If there's a one-time repair button, that means there's a tiny repair beam inside the component somewhere that uses RMC. Why isn't that just tied to a reservoir that can be controlled from the cockpit? Let the pilot decide if the repair per component goes to 20% or 100% until the RMC runs out. Also, the RMC storage can get shot too. And if you have that on a single seater, then it would be common sense design to have that system on ships with ample hallways and wall space. And it should also be possible for the crew to refill that RMC storage. It would cut down the response time to repair systems, and the crew needed to do damage control in a fight because you only need one crewman in engineering on the console pressing repair and consuming the RMC storage. Once that storage is dry, the crewman can run around refilling the thing. That is a far more realistic idea, to be honest. And once that RMC runs out, you're down to manual repairs. Just like the fire. Fire is handled using an extinguisher. That's okay in basic and makes good sense, but it can also be put out by venting a room to space, which also makes a ton of sense. That way you don't require a crew person to be running around putting out fires, because venting from the engineering terminal does the job. Therefore, fire is implemented well in the game mechanics. Fire extinguisher is a good backup. The main method to counteract fire is through the terminal. Engineering console. It's fine to have an engineering console as it is. However, the problem is that if you do have a crewman running inside the ship, he would not be able to access the damage report information from the engineering console unless you put engineering consoles in every section of the ship, which would make no sense. So, why not put it on the mobiGlas? At the very least, the ability to see damage reports, ship map layout and control of doors, vent rooms, etc. No access to power systems or anything deep. Crew would only get access to this on the mobiGlas if the captain grants permission. If we're still expecting permissions to be a thing for crew management. Again, fantastic idea. Having the only engineering console be on the bridge when you're running around in the back trying to put out fires is honestly just one really good counterpoint. What I'm not getting is why everyone is okay with a repair tool that we have to go to the completely destroyed piece of equipment, point at the component and it magically gets fixed. But we're not okay with the ship having the same magic repair tool. Their last point is about having to remove armour to access cockpit seats and things like that. For mostly realism's sake, but I completely disagree with this point. I mean, at a push I would accept having to take off a backpack, but being ready as soon as you jump out of a small fighter or something like that is almost a necessity, to be honest. Great ideas though. Engineering. Great idea, wrong timing and wrong focus. Hey everyone, I'm not against engineering as a concept. In fact, it could be a really fun system that adds depth. But in its current proposed form, and with the current state of the game, I see a few major concerns. 1. Stability first. Star Citizen still has a huge list of existing bugs, some of them game breaking already. Adding a system that can potentially disable your ship entirely if something breaks feels risky. We might end up with more I can't fly my ship anymore moments than meaningful gameplay. Maybe we should fix the foundation before building a skyscraper on top. That's very hard to argue against. Feels like punishment for solo players. Right now engineering looks less like new gameplay and more like you must do this or suffer penalties. There are plenty of players who enjoy flying solo or playing small sessions due to time or life constraints. Why turn a cool system into a barrier instead of an option? 3. Make it a buff, not a tax. Engineering could shine as a bonus activity, not a mandatory chore. Think better shield regen if someone manages it, boosted efficiency, faster repairs, more damage maybe. I mean, I kind of see that that's what it is for these last 2 points. I see it as mostly a buff, mostly a bonus, but just slightly offset into the maintenance side of things. You can have better shield regen, you can have boosted efficiency, but if you want these things, there's an associated maintenance cost, mostly in your time. If you don't want these things, then you're mostly just playing the game as normal. As long as you land and repair every now and again, it should be fine. Don't worry about that raging inferno behind you. You don't need to worry about that. Just, keep your suit on, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. As soon as you land and repair, I'll go away. I'll go away. I'm sure of it. 930 years in the future and we use fire extinguishers? ? Manual firefighting and wrench work on components in hyper-advanced ship ecosystem feels odd. Why not lean into sci-fi? Auto fire suppression. Repair drones, automated emergency systems. Crew interaction should enhance performance, not replace basic automation. Solo Idris is not going away. Oh, by the way, there's no engineering on the Idris. So all these people that are happy because big multi-crew ships will now have some sort of consequence. Just like the Connie and the Avenger Titan, the Idris is the same. It is not ready for engineering. Engineering won't stop griefing or lone wolf capital pilots. That's not a ship systems problem, it's a player behaviour problem. People who want to cheese or grief will always find a new angle. As I normally say at these points, that's not a player behaviour problem, that's a CIG, we need security in the game problem. Engineering shouldn't be a punishment system or a bug multiplier. Let it be optional, rewarding and futuristic. A system that makes ships better rather than non-functional without constant babysitting. Depth equals awesome, forced chores and unstable systems equals not so much. Let's get the game sturdy first, and then bring engineering in as a fun enhancement, not a barrier. This post has 84 downvotes and 61 upvotes. And I'm all for engineering, but these were some really good points. And it does kind of encapsulate the anti-engineering ethos, if that makes sense. A lot of these guys aren't really against engineering, they're just against more time sinks and more bugs as a result. And I'm glad for it. I'm glad that there's people pushing and pulling in both directions. That's fundamental to how this game has been made. CIG spends a few million making one system and then we all hate it, and then they spend another few million on another system and then we hate it, and then they spend another few million on a system and we go, yeah, that'll do. That is how we will get the best damn space game possible. That's why the forums exist. You got to fight your corner. I think it'll be in a relatively good starting place. Engineering, that is. And I know, I'll finish up fighting some NPCs and I'll be pissed off because I need to get out of my seat and go and put out some fires and fix some things as well, when all I want to do is just go to the next fight. I can see that becoming tedious. I can see having to manage having resources on board all the time to deal with all that stuff becoming tedious. But if it forces me to fight better, if it forces me to really consider about what I'm about to do, instead of just mashing into a big ball of NPCs and killing them all because they're just worse at games than me, and then flying away onto another big ball of NPCs with very little downsides. I think the game will be enhanced if I have to carefully draw out a target from that ball and try and get that one-on-one. And not only that, but if I can enhance my ship using engineering to pull that off, then that maintenance in between fights will probably be worth it. In my eyes. It might not be, it might be a massive pain in the ass. But if I can overclock my shields and, do this, that and the next thing, get more capacitance maybe for my lasers, I don't know, at the cost of some maintenance, I see that kind of balancing out. I'm looking forward to testing it anyway. About these limited time events and the direction of the game. Dear CIG, we don't want FOMO based, mindlessly repetitive events. We don't want a seasonal approach to your MMO. We don't want to have to grind for yet another heap of hanger-bound rewards, for which we don't even know what place they will have in the final landscape of things, and which should be part of in-game quests anyway. We simply want the game to be built and to be drawn to it by its own merits, organic gameplay and persistent content. That's how I feel about SC anyway. I love the game and have faith in the project. I keep funding it, but I've been feeling very concerned about the direction it's heading. You always boast about being an independent studio, free from the constraints and soulless profit-driven corporate mindset of the broader gaming industry. We can forgive mistakes and imperfection. We can take delays. We can be patient and have loose wallets, but please don't just become like one of them. Don't let the marketing department ruin the greater vision for the universe you're building. This guy says, these events with hanger rewards are pretty much the only reason I log into the game. Outside the events I don't see the point in playing SC because your progress is constantly wiped. This guy says, if your game isn't worth playing without dangling some juicy FOMO carrot in front of the player's nose, you are in trouble. Correct. And this seasonal approach definitely starts to give a certain vibe to it. Like in this patch, you will be encountering this new event, but it also gives us this opportunity to sell you this patch bundle. And to be honest, it's kind of fine where it is right now, but it could get worse. I don't mind the patch bundles. The events are pretty repetitive, you could say. Like, it very quickly just becomes a soulless grind for those skins. Everyone I know just wants it out the way. I am addicted to skins, and this is the very first time I've just thought about just not bothering. But that's mostly my own time constraints. If you can group up with enough people, you can, bash through it in a reasonable time frame. But yeah, great post. This is a concern, to be honest. There are devs taking time out to work on these events, and I've noticed quite a few of us would just so much rather they were making missions, permanent missions, bringing in the old missions, and filling out the foundation of the game again. And it definitely doesn't help when the bugs are as intense as they have been recently. This whole themed patch thing definitely gives, epic Ube vibes. And it wouldn't be a problem, but what missions did we get back this patch? Or what new missions did we get added? Or remember when he was talking about being able to chain missions from like a bounty into a salvage, into a delivery. And the longer all those things keep not appearing whilst the FOMO based events, as it's described here, keep churning out, the more people get, that sense of disquiet. But it does have its upsides. It brings a lot of players together, I've noticed, in the game. You get random people joining up and trying to do the events together. Fun will be had, obviously. So I guess it's not entirely a bad thing. And those mission layouts can always be implemented into permanent missions going down the road. Again, the skills, the tool set, it's all growing all the time. I'm not really that worried, to be honest. A plank for the Kraken. Can we get a plank to make people walk when we make them walk the plank? Would be nice for a little roleplay. Not that I'm into that sort of thing, but it would be fun to make someone walk the plank from time to time. Now, obviously my instant reaction to this is yes. Listen to some of these responses. In the future, that would translate to vacuum ejection room. Yeah, we know, dude. We know. But still, plank. I want a plank. Please don't. Just jump off the landing pad. No. I want a freaking plank. I'll not only want a plank, but I want a button for the plank that extends it so that there's a ceremony to the plank. Walking the plank is not real. It's a fictional recreation for impact for film/TV. Shut up. Why have you said that? Don't just come out here with your facts and destroy my headcanon. Nah, just space them. Knock them out, tractor them into the airlock. Open the outer door. You guys don't get it. That's not how you deal with a mutiny. Not that I'm into that sort of thing, he said, posting on the forum about it. A plank is useless in microgravity. This is what's wrong with Spectrum. Can we get the Kraken first, then the plank? Thank you. This comment gets a pass. Go casual, go downfall. This is the last one. We've seen the pattern before. When a game pivots heavily towards the casual mass, it often sacrifices what made it unique. Casual players are by nature volatile, trying it, moving on. Building your foundation on them alone, that's sand under your feet. Yes, you can have an accessible surface, smooth your onboarding, help new players feel at home, but that must never mean diluting your core, your depth, your identity, because when you flatten the challenge, you flatten the meaning, and meaning is what keeps people committed. Go casual, go downfall. Make onboarding slick, welcome new players, but don't abandon what makes your experience worth staying for. Yes, a game for everyone is a game for no one, because it lacks any focus or texture. Players will always ask for things to be easier and friction to be removed. You need to know when to listen and when to ignore them. MMOs that have worked to remove all friction go into decline. Even the titans like World of Warcraft and Final Fantasy. Friction creates challenge and struggle, and that's what creates an actual sense of accomplishment, progression and achievement. Friction creates choices to be made. Friction creates the texture that makes a game unique. Cool, buy me out, I'll take 6k back and go and play No Man's Sky. Yeah. The thing is, Star Citizen is in a unique position to be possibly the first game in existence to achieve both. If you want simple, streamlined experience, you pick a simple, streamlined ship and you do simple, streamlined stuff. Anybody can do that right now. If you want a harder, more punishing experience though, you pick a bigger, more complicated ship. You go and do bigger, more complicated things. That freedom is inherently built into the game. But people from both sides of that aisle want the whole game to be their way. And to be honest, I think CIG has done a relatively good job of not folding completely in either direction. There's the odd thing, you know, the flight model especially, and there was the scope glint and things like that make it seem like it's getting more casual, which worries me and it worries a lot of people. And then there's engineering and things like that that make the more casual kind of audience, I hesitate to call them casual, but the people that don't want space armour, they start to get a bit, oh, I don't know about this. But let's just churn along. Let's keep fighting back and forward about it, trying to convince each other, have the debate, mix it all up in a bowl, bake some fucking space cookies. Cause we're all gonna eat them and they're gonna be tasty. Guarantee you. Anyway, that's all I got time for today. I will not be back tomorrow. I will be working on things I wish I knew about Star Citizen Episode 2, which is more for beginners and stuff. So not much really for you guys to get excited about, but if you've got any ideas about what I could add to that, by all means, join the Discord or leave a comment below. I appreciate all and every single one of your suggestions. Thank you all for listening to my diabolical ranting. Hope you have a lovely weekend. 07 guys.